What are the biggest threats to public safety in Ottawa County? What statistics do you have on those threats, and how do you plan to address them?
So the biggest issue, and it's pretty statewide, and I think John touched on it earlier, is recruitment and retention. You saw a couple years back, there was kind of an anti-police sentiment, and it kind of led to a lull in new recruits coming out. And then when there were recruits coming out, every agency was down people. And so, when I started 25 years ago, we all waited in the part-time ranks for the one job that opened, and you all fought for it. Whereas now, we have a constant hire. We do not close our positions for new candidates. So ultimately, we have to be better as the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office at attracting candidates. Now, we already have a great department with a lot of opportunities. We're large, you can move around, there's any type of assignment that you could possibly want, but we just need to be better at marketing that for people that either want to come into the profession or are already in the profession and looking for a move. And then adding programs to get local people, kids in high school and college, to want to come to the profession, but then want to stay local in a place that they grew up and love.
Thank you. I don't have any statistics, unfortunately, from the county. Eric touched on it, though. Recruiting is a nationwide challenge, and retention's become even more challenging. Ottawa's not different than a lot of other places where there's no defined pensions anymore that really kind of helps people want to stay there a lot longer. So it really becomes important to make sure you're taking care of your staff, making sure that they're getting that voice heard, that they feel that they have the trust and you have their back, because we don't have some of the same, like Eric had mentioned, we don't have that same pool to pull from anymore. And without that defined benefit pensions, that would sometimes keep people in one place for a little bit longer, just because there was something that they had to work toward. We really have to work harder to make sure we're not only recruiting, but we're retaining those good people.
Thank you. John, Ottawa County Sheriff's Office currently does not have body cameras or dash cameras. What is your position on body cameras and dash cameras? Would you implement body cameras and dash cameras? And why or why not?
I think, at least from my understanding, they're coming. They're on their way here, so at least we do have them working. My previous department got them right around 2009, so I was on the body-worn camera committee when we first got them. And I can tell you firsthand, at least, that they are phenomenal for what they achieve. It's not just for use of force or for shooting incidents. A couple of things happen. When a deputy puts on a body-worn camera, they also know they're being recorded. And it seemed to straighten them up just a little bit with how they're talking, just to maybe think through a little bit what they're saying. But also, it really helps, I think, with the accountability and on transparency. Whether it's a major incident or just something that's a minor complaint, I think the value of them is above what I could even speak to.
Yeah, as John mentioned, they are coming. In fact, we were in a meeting today putting looking through the final touches of a 283-page contract, because it's not just body-worn cameras, it's in-car cameras, it's attached to our Axon tasers. There's a lot of redaction software, because anytime you have a recording, we have to make it public, but we have to clean all the information out of it. So all that is coming, and we're really excited about it. Anytime I can find a technology that can make us more efficient, more transparent, we're going to look for that. So ultimately, we're really excited for that project to move forward, and to see how that impacts our agency. Also, it'll be a nice tool to showcase the incredible things our deputies do every day, because I can tell you about it all day long, but you watch it a couple times in video, and you're going to really see what kind of people you guys are fielding every day.
Eric? What is the relationship a sheriff should have with the community, and how do you plan to engage the community to provide services? Sure.
So, as far as police leadership goes, sheriff is kind of an oddity, right? Politics and police work don't generally go hand in hand, but this is the one position where the people can decide what kind of police department they want, what kind of police executive they want. So I think it's really important that all of you have every opportunity to get to know me, whether it be more than just our policies in our department, but to get to know me. In fact, we were having a conversation in the office about the current sheriff and some of the events that we're going to, and I began to think about how it'd be probably beneficial for us if I, and this is something I was just kind of thinking to myself, was able to go to more of these events and publicize them so that everyone has a chance to come out and get to know me and talk with me, give me their ideas, so that ultimately it isn't just every 4 years that you get your feedback on to what the sheriff's office is doing, but you can do it at any particular time.
Yeah, I see the sheriff as the CEO of an organization that should be the face of that organization, be out in the public, showing, leading by example, building those relationships in the communities. Under sheriff's typically your COO or your operations officer, but it does start at the top, and those the relationships you build, the communication style that you have, leadership style that you have, will filter its way down. And you want to empower your people, your supervisors, and your deputies to do their job, and to have them see you out and about in the community, so that they can emulate that and see exactly what goes on. With the sheriff, like Eric said, it's an elected position, and the people have that opportunity to not only just elect, but then they have the 4 years to see if this is a person they still want, if they're happy with the direction the department is going. So it's imperative that you're out constantly in the community.
And John, do you believe the Sheriff's Department is properly funded, or does it need additional funding? And if it needs additional funding, what would that look like?
To the best of my knowledge here, I think the Sheriff's Department is very well funded. Eric had mentioned earlier that there are contract positions, so a lot of the patrol deputies you see, especially in some of the townships and cities, those are funded through the cities or contracts or the township contracts. You do have to still work within your budget. The nice thing about being in a conservative county, we're fiscally conservative here, which means, like all of us, like me, I'm a taxpayer first. So we're not going to want to go out and have to start telling people we need to, increase create a millage or increase taxes for law enforcement. So it's just important to stay within those. And sometimes you got to do some reorganization, take a hard look at your operations. But so far, I would say we're adequately funded.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm in the midst of the budget process now, and so I guess I won't be able to answer that correctly until the budget process concludes and October 1 starts next year. But ultimately, Ottawa County has always been well taken care of. The Sheriff's Office has always been well taken care of. Now, obviously, like John said, we're all taxpayers in the room, and we want to make sure there's always something more I could probably pay for and use to make the Sheriff's Department just that much bigger and just that much better. But we have to be smart about what we do. So finding ways to use technology to be more efficient, but also at the same time not always going out there and trying to find the best new shiny thing is okay too. So I guess the short answer is we'll see. But right now it's looking, historically it's been pretty good.
And Eric, should the gender, race, and ethnic makeup of the county reflect the staffing of the department?
I think when you have a force, a set of employees that match the people that live in that area, I think it lends credibility, and it lends a little bit more credibility to that agency, so that anyone out there, regardless of who they are or what they are or where they're from, can feel like they're represented by your agency and they're not being singled out or treated unfairly one way or the other. So ultimately, the more diversity, the more the ideas, the more viewpoints, the less myopic your ideas are. So I'm all for diversity, I'm all for new ideas, I'm all for different opinions. And so if we can look more like the people we serve, whatever that looks like, I think that is a benefit.
It has long been said that a law enforcement agency should mirror its community. So of course I do believe that's true. I don't certainly believe in necessarily recruiting for any one specific, whether it's a race or gender. But if you're doing a good job at recruiting and you're really getting out there, opening that up to everyone and encouraging everyone, you should have a pretty good reflection of that community.
And once again, John, what can the Sheriff's Department do to reduce substance abuse, mental health related manners, and suicide in the community?
Well, the Sheriff's Department here, I know, also runs a CIT team. Really, it just keeps up. You have to keep up on training with your mental health, with substance abuse. That gets interesting because you can go out. It's as a law enforcement officer, you can really target people maybe in possession of or under the influence of drugs. But throwing those people in jail, writing them the citations, having them go to court, that doesn't always work. Working with your prosecutor's office and the courts and making sure you have good diversion programs and becoming involved in those too, not just finishing it with the arrest, but making sure you're involved with those programs really goes a long way with recidivism and reducing those types of incidents.
So yeah, a lot of times the root cause of crimes that we deal with are substance related, mental health related. And criminalizing mental health behavior doesn't benefit anyone in the long run. We're blessed in Ottawa County to have an unbelievable drug court, mental health court, TV court, all these diversion courts that try and treat the base problems so that we don't have to deal with the same group of people over and over again because of problems that aren't necessarily ill-intentioned so much as just issues that they need to deal with. And then past that, learning as deputies how to deal with those things on the street so as not to make every mental health issue a criminal issue goes towards the training that we have. Yes, we have a CIT team that's made up of a deputy and some practitioners from CMH, but also training the whole department in CIT tactics so that when you are dealing with someone that's just having mental health issues, we have a little bit more understanding on how to deal with that and not just throw someone on the ground and put them in handcuffs as we used to.
Eric? What type of programming do you envision to educate and/or train citizens?
Yeah, so the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office has always had a ton of programs, and it's a point of pride for us. In fact, we have a lieutenant's position that's pretty much just based on community programs, and we've always had. I was a trainer in ORV safety, we've got hunter safety, boater safety. We have Citizens Police Academy, and we want to probably run 2 of those a year instead of 1. We have all these programs so that everyone, if there's any aspect of law enforcement or any aspect of any type of criminal justice information out there, we more than likely already have a program for it, or if not, our lieutenant's going to be looking into that because we just promoted a new one, and he's going to be something. I can't wait till you guys get to see him more often. So. Yeah, there's tons of programs out there, including programs in our jails for those that are incarcerated so that they leave better than when they came so that maybe we won't see them again. So programs will continue and expand as we go.
What he said. Now, there's not much I can expand on that. My previous agency had a lot of those programs too, and it's great. Now, it sounds like Ottawa County has a lot of great programs. The Citizens Academy is a great tool to bring people in and really show them behind the scenes what goes on. And I do encourage everyone to see that. It's not what you necessarily think. And you can watch things like Cops on TV, but it's a phenomenal to have those types of programs. And Eric kind of touched on it too. We can't forget about people that are in jail. If you don't want to keep seeing them again, you got to have those programs, educational programs, and things that'll help them when they get out.
And another question for you. Do you support Ottawa County being a constitutional county? And if so, do you support the doctrine of lesser magistrates? I'm trying to read the word. Should I repeat that?
No.
Okay.
No, anyway.
All right.
Yeah, fundamentally, I mean, the U.S. Constitution is something we should all believe in. The idea, I think the problem comes in if we say a constitutional county or a constitutional sheriff, is then it starts to evolve into we interpret the Constitution differently, and that's just not the case. I believe in it just on its face value that, yes, being a constitutional county means we just make sure we are, enforcing, we're upholding the Constitution, making sure everybody's constitutional rights are protected. Nothing to do, I certainly do not believe in reducing any courts or taking the courts out of the picture or having any kind of workaround with the courts. I just simply believe you have the Constitution and you follow it.
Any stance by the county commission to designate us a constitutional county does not have any difference or any change in how we do our business. We will uphold the Constitution, all parts of it at all times. And then as for the lesser, was it the lesser magistrates? No. Obviously, I believe, I'm a Christian, I believe that those morals guide my behavior, but I will always follow the law, and if there's a law that's passed that's so bad that I can't take it as a Christian, then it's going to be my job to step aside.
I'm now going to move to closing statements. If you'll recall, you each have 2 minutes for closing statements. And since we began with you, John, we will end with Eric.
Well, now you've learned a little bit more about me and what I've done here at the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office. Ultimately, I love this place. I love these people. I've served here 25 years. I just want to keep serving. Thank you.
Well, I really want to say thank you for coming tonight. I sincerely appreciate people who come out and educate themselves. I've said it from the beginning of this, you know, if I lose this race in the election and it's to people who were educated voters and they voted for the person they felt was the right person, that's how democracy is supposed to work. Having these kinds of forums and having people show up is what's, I think, key to get educated. And I know not everybody can go. If you have neighbors and friends, you know, they can find, both of us have websites. We have Facebook, social medias, sites you can find us on. If these questions, if you didn't get enough questions answered, by all means, reach out to us. I just want educated voters. And please, above all, everybody you know, remind them August 6th is the election. Everybody up here tonight, you know, the decisions will be made on August 6th. I have met a few people who, you know, maybe they've said, hey, we'll vote for you, or yeah, we got it, we'll see you in November. I'm thinking, well, you know, there's an election in August, and they said, there is? So it's really important we get that out, because for some reason it doesn't seem to resonate. So again, thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
Want to just switch?
Can we switch places so we don't have to switch?
Okay, there you go. Makes it easy.
Great idea.
Which one?
That's John and.
We'd like to thank both of you for being here this evening, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say to all of us. We're going to use the same process that we used when we were hearing from the sheriffs. We will start with a 3-minute opening statement, and again, we will begin in alphabetical order. So we will start with you, Sarah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Matwiejczyk, and I am your Chief Assistant Prosecutor here in Ottawa County. I am serving in my 23rd year as a prosecutor in Ottawa County, serving in all courts that are affected by the prosecutor's office. I've served in the probate courts, the juvenile courts, the circuit courts, the district courts, all our sobriety courts. There's not a case the prosecutor's office has handled or can handle that I haven't handled and can't step in to handle if the need arises in our office. I'm endorsed by our current prosecutor, Lee Fisher, our prior prosecutor, Ronald France, the prosecutor before that, Wes Nykamp, and the prosecutor before that, Cal Bosman. They pointed out the other day that I am endorsed by all 4 living prosecutors here in Ottawa County, and I'm quite honored by that. I'm also endorsed by the current sheriff, Steve Kemker, and our former sheriff, Gary Rosema. And by the way, I've worked with all of those individuals as a prosecutor in that capacity, so I'm very honored by those endorsements. A little bit about myself. I've been married for 21 years. We have 2 sets of twins. We have 3 girls and 1 boy. So let's just add a campaign to all that busyness. And by the way, they're all teenagers. And my father served in Vietnam, my grandfather in World War II, my brother was a graduate of West Point in the top 1% of his class. So veterans in the military are extremely important to me, and I've extended those values on to my children also. I teach at the Grand Valley State University Police Academy, where I've taught for decades. I teach at the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan, where we train new prosecutors and upcoming prosecutors, giving them the passion that I have, that hopefully you'll see tonight, for what it is that I do and I've committed my entire adult career to doing. I also was an adjunct professor at Cooley Law School, where I taught trial skills to third-year law students. So if ever you want to be challenged on your knowledge of the law, that's probably where it's going to happen. So until they closed their doors in Grand Rapids, I was doing that for quite some time as well. The prosecutor's office is extremely important to me. I am, as you probably can tell, very passionate about what it is that we do. I went to law school for this purpose, to serve the community here in Ottawa County, which is where I've lived and hope to stay as your next elected prosecutor. I've done everything from misdemeanor, traffic, civil infractions, up to homicide cases and everything in between. We have lots of great services for our young people here in Ottawa County, and I helped bring in an elder abuse disciplinary task force here because that's a growing population here in Ottawa County that needed a little bit of extra attention. So I'm very proud to say that I helped bring that here to Ottawa County. I am excited to speak with you today. I'm hoping that we can answer some questions and make you aware of the importance of this position here in Ottawa County and answer those questions for you. So thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Greg Todd, and I've been a lifelong resident here of Ottawa County. My wife, Crystal, and I have been married for 27 years. We've got 3 kids that we've been homeschooling. I'm a 17-year litigation attorney. I'm a firefighter, small business owner, first responder, and former police officer. I'm also the Grand Haven Tribune's People's Choice Award winner for Best Law Firm and Best Attorney for 6 out of the last 7 years. Now I'm running to be the Ottawa County Prosecutor. When COVID hit, we witnessed an unprecedented assault on our individual liberties and the founding documents of this country. I'm running because Ottawa deserves a leader who's going to lead with conviction. He's going to secure our liberties and maintain justice to foster a safer, stronger community. I've been endorsed by the Ottawa County Republican Party. In fact, out of all the elected precinct delegates in the county, 98.5% of them overwhelmingly voted for me. I've been endorsed by the Michigan 3rd District Republican Committee. I've also been endorsed by Michigan Right to Life, the Great Lakes Gun Rights, and multiple business owners and attorneys and legislators throughout the community. I've been doing the litigation thing, which is basically fighting in the courtroom, for 17 years at this point. I started off doing business and real estate and civil litigation, but because of my law enforcement background, I quickly added criminal defense to the system. I then made the mistake of doing a divorce for a friend of mine, and word of mouth ended up making it so that family law also became a big part of my practice, as well as the probate. So I have really extensive experience in all facets of our legal system, not just in front of our Ottawa County judges and our Ottawa courts, but in Muskegon, Oceana, Newaygo, Kalamazoo, and Kent as well. Because of my diverse background, I'm one of probably the most uniquely qualified candidates, because I've done this from the prosecution side as an extern, I've done this from the defense side as a private practice attorney, and I've also done it from the law enforcement side. I've got extensive management experience, and as I did mention, my firm is competing with some of the bigger law firms out there, but because of that use and my ability to leverage technologies, my small firm can compete with these big firms, and we beat them almost every single year when it comes to getting that Best Law Firm award from the Grand Haven Tribune. Ultimately, I'm running because I don't believe that our government should be using the power of its office to enforce such things like unconstitutional mandates.
Thank you both. for your opening statements, and we'll start with the first question. And Sarah, that question goes to you. What is your background and how will it help you to serve this community as prosecutor? Why are you running for office?
I'm running for office because this is what I've done my entire life, and as an adult, this is what I wanted to do, and I think I'm pretty darn good at it. Serving this community here in Ottawa County for 23 years, there's nothing I haven't handled as a prosecutor, and I'll tell you, every single day is different. We don't deal with the same case every single day, it changes every day, and we need to make sure that there's somebody who has that constant passion for serving the community with knowledge of how to handle victims of crime, witnesses, and everybody in our community to make sure that justice is served.
Great.
When you take all the emotion out of the prosecutor's office, the reality is that it's simply a government-run law firm. And the government tends to be decades behind the private sector. When you look at the stats of this current office, they are behind by decades, is the way it appears. I think by bringing in outside perspectives from the private sector and leveraging technologies, we can bring the prosecutor's office into the 21st century.
Greg, the next question is also yours. What are the priority issues facing our community and how would you address them if elected?
Well, again, it's been said that Ottawa County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state, if not the country. And obviously, we are going to have growing pains with that. And at the same time, given the workforce that we have, we do have to deal with, recruiting new talent, getting new prosecutors in there, and also holding on and retaining those that we have. It's an interesting challenge that a lot of the offices throughout the state and country seem to be struggling with because it being a government-run law firm, the salaries are significantly lower than what would be available in the private practice. But I believe by leveraging technology, we can increase the productivity of each of the individual assistants and perhaps be able to use some of those extra resources in order to bolster their salaries.
Well, I have to respectfully disagree. I don't think that we're a government law firm. We don't have clients. We represent every single one of you. And I think we do it pretty darn well. I'm very proud of our staff in our prosecutor's office. They are dedicated, experienced prosecutors, and they have dedicated their adult professional life also to serving all of you as prosecuting attorneys. They all know that they could probably make more money in a private sector, but they've chosen not to for the same reason that I haven't. So the concerns I think I see with our community is to maintain the safety that we have. Because here in Ottawa County, I think all of us feel very safe because you have experienced prosecutors dedicated behind you. And it's just important to make sure that we can ensure that people feel safe with all the things going on around our community and on the state level, federal level, and everywhere we go so that people are still happy that they live here in Ottawa County.
And the next question is for you as well. As candidates, have you signed any agreements with groups, organizations, or individuals vowing to adhere to the group's or the individual priorities?
Just oaths to the United States and the Michigan Constitution.
That would be the same answer, oaths to the constitutions of the state and the United States. No political parties or businesses or anything along those lines.
The next question is yours, Greg. What are the biggest threats to public safety in Ottawa County, and how would you address them?
So I think the biggest threats that we're facing now, although it's probably the fastest growing, not necessarily the most imminent, would be the illegal immigration issue. It's several times now we're starting to hear the phrase all states are border states. And every single week we have news articles that are bringing the crimes based on these illegal immigrants closer and closer and closer to our communities. Together with that, the other issue I think that we're facing is we have a mental health crisis that's getting worse and worse and worse. We've got addiction issues, and ultimately it's my belief that if we don't figure out how to properly address these issues, they're ultimately going to default to the way, to some extent they have been, and end up having those people get wrapped up into the criminal justice system. I know we do have alternate treatment programs. We have the drug court and sobriety court and the DV courts and all those. But we have to be sure that ultimately those things are the best treatment for those people.
Sarah?
Well, speaking as the Chief Assistant Prosecutor, I can tell you what people are seeing and that what we're hearing out in the community is simply that they're feeling like people are breaking more into their cars that are in their driveways and simple things along those lines. These are the types of cases that we're seeing a lot, and these are the concerns we're hearing. Just safety. They want to make sure that what their concerns are about feeling safe in their communities, that we're taking care of it. So technology, I would say, right now is our biggest threat. We've got different threats that are being made in different ways of social media and communications. We've got people breaking into people's cars and homes because of new ways to break into them. And so we're learning those. We're being trained with our law enforcement agencies so that we can prosecute these cases and become little experts in technology as well and help educate our community and prosecute justly.
And Sarah, the next question is yours. When the situation calls for a jury trial, does the county have a strong and diverse jury pool? If not, what is being done to create such a pool?
That's a really good question, and we just had a couple of really big jury trials here in Ottawa County, and we did not feel like it was very diverse because basically what they did was they held all the college students up until the summer, so we had a bunch of college students in our jury pool, so we didn't think that was a very diverse population. But no, I think that they could improve on that significantly. I'm not exactly sure how to do it, but I know that whenever we're dealing with juries here in Ottawa County, we all think that it could be a little bit better done and more well run. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that for you, but yeah, I think that they could improve on their jury pool quality.
I don't know if things have changed, but it used to be when you signed up for voter registration, that's how you ended up getting selected or for the jury pool. And ultimately, I think the level of diversity that we're going to see, if it's still run that way based on voter registration, we need to have the community out there registering to vote so that they can actually be in the jury pool.
Greg, the next question is yours. There are multiple police jurisdictions in the county. Are there any major differences in how your office works with each of them? What are they?
Well, the biggest thing is that a lot of the municipalities, the cities, are going to have their own specific attorneys that will generally handle the misdemeanor loads. And obviously when it comes to the things that you're doing within the community, you have to kind of make sure that you're looking out and you're respecting the values of each individual municipality. That's one of the things that you get where, as Muskegon County and Ottawa County are very, very different in that we have a big sheriff's department with a few small police departments, which is really good for consolidation of resources and maximizing the efficiency in that way. But the problem is that the bigger you get in those economies of scale, you tend to lose the characteristics and the character of each individual community. And so really the idea is to try to strike the right balance between those when you move forward.
We have 5 law enforcement agencies here in Ottawa County. Holland Police Department is actually a pretty big one. And the city attorneys, although they do handle some of the misdemeanor cases, we handle a substantial amount of those. So we work with all 5 of those law enforcement agencies on a daily basis. Our biggest challenge of dealing with those law enforcement agencies is they all handle things differently. And so we have Sealand Police Department that's really on top of all their technology and body cams and dash cams, and they've been doing it for years. And then we've got the Sheriff's Department that's getting it rolling and starting to get it to happen. How we get all that information, our digital evidence, is very complex because we're kind of in the middle of the court system and the law enforcement system. So for us to be able to gather from these 5 different independent agencies and the different ways that they do things and the different ways that they give us things, and then be able to disseminate that out has been one of our biggest challenges. But we work very hard and strive very hard to handle and treat and work with all of those agencies equally.
Next question, Sarah. Will AI impact investigations and evidence presented to assist cases or at a trial? If so, how would this impact the prosecutor's office?
I hope not. I don't think the prosecutor's office could work with AI. I really don't. I mean, we're dealing with human beings. Just AI doesn't make any sense to me. Where we have humans testifying, we have police officers testifying, we have witnesses and victims testifying. AI doesn't seem to be something that I'm too concerned about at this moment. The only thing I can think about is that I see more and more kids in school kind of doing their papers using AI. Maybe they could help us a little bit with our closing arguments. But other than that, I don't see AI helping us or being a part of our jobs for very long.
AI is going to be absolutely critical to the entire legal industry. It's already rocking it from the bottom, from the bottom to the top. The reality is that when you have to write a brief or a motion or deal with an appeal or even just do legal research, you can do hours and hours and hours of legal research in simple minutes. That's what I was talking about. One of the examples that I was talking about earlier about being able to leverage technology to make the individual assistant significantly more productive in their writing, in their research, in creating legal arguments, and all in general being able to put together the cases. I mean, you can actually take AI and you can have it run through written opinions, and it can make educated guesses as to the best reasoning to persuade a judge or a jury. It can look at previous cases and tell you, yeah, these are the things to focus on and here are the likely outcomes underneath your particular fact pattern. So, like it or not, AI is here to stay.
Greg, how does a prosecutor engage with the community to increase public understanding?
So that's one of the big things that I'm for. The prosecutors that have all had the office here, they like to keep their head down, they like to lay low and get reelected, whereas I think the public deserves to know what's going on. One of the biggest challenges that I faced in this race was people didn't even know that the prosecuting attorney was an elected position. The next phase after that was explaining to them why it's a partisan position, why it's Democrats and Republicans. But at the end of the day, I believe that the prosecutor should be explaining the cases. The prosecutor should be out there. I would intend to have office hours where people can come ask questions. I'd be out there doing town halls just to educate them as to, here are the things that the office is doing. Here's why we're doing it. And make it so that it's very, very obvious the things that are going on so that you don't get these political agendas that end up taking over the narrative.
Well, unfortunately, the prosecuting attorney is sworn to keep a lot of your private information secure. So we can't hold public forums or anything along those lines, and we can't discuss our cases with anybody that's not a direct victim of the case. So there's a lot of privacy issues, and I understand on a daily basis for year after year, all of us prosecutors in Ottawa County have had phone calls from people who want to know about cases. They want to know the information, they want to know the facts. But you tell me, if you're a victim of crime, how would you like it if you knew that all of your private and personal information involving one, probably the worst days of your life, is exposed to the public by the prosecutor who's going to be there seeking justice for you? So I would say we're there, we always take our phone calls, we answer them, but it's a tough conversation sometimes we have to say to them when we say that we can't provide all of that information. If you're a victim of crime, however, we're there for you and we will always be there for you.
And the next question, how would you encourage lawyers to engage in public service? And that goes to you, Sarah.
I think it's extremely important. I've learned more. One thing I've learned significantly from this campaign is how big our community is. Greg is absolutely right. A lot of people don't know what a prosecutor was, and I've always said that was a really good thing, because if you know what a prosecutor is, you've either been a defendant of crime or you've been a victim of crime. So these are not good days. So not knowing what your prosecutor does is a good thing. However, we're very approachable people. We're not the kind of people that can't answer your phone calls and have a conversation with you. So I definitely am striving to open up communications with our office, make sure that we're very approachable. Almost all of our prosecutors, sometimes good, sometimes bad, send out their personal cell phones so that police officers can talk to them and answer their phones when they're on vacation. And that's important. People need to know who we are, that we're approachable, that we're good humans, and that we care about our community, and I plan to continue that and or improve it.
Can you repeat the question?
I would be happy to. How would you encourage lawyers to engage in public service?
Yeah, I was a little confused by that response. So lawyers engaging in public service. I think the big thing is that most lawyers need to have some sort of incentive to serve the public. Personally, I do a lot of work for legal aid and the pro bono. Like right now, I'm dealing with this really messy divorce. I've actually got a trial on Monday because of that. But I think the big thing is that there needs to be more communication between the people that need that service. There needs to be ways in order to get those people to more attorneys. And I think those sources need to be more proactive instead of just waiting for the attorneys to come and volunteer their time. There needs to be a better way to connect these things, especially when the people that need it really do need it bad.
And the next question is yours as well. How would you assess the evidence in a case to determine if charges should be brought?
So ultimately, in order to bring charges, you have to have probable cause, which boiled down in layman's terms means that a crime probably occurred and the defendant or bad guy probably did it. So generally speaking, when you're looking at evidence, you want to take a look at all the things that are there, whether it's the evidence that tends to suggest or the evidence that tends to exonerate, and you got to weigh whether or not you have that legal standard of probable cause. And if it's there, then the warrant should be authorized unless there's some sort of extenuating circumstances to do otherwise.
This is something a prosecuting attorney does multiple times every single day. So we don't investigate, we get all that information from law enforcement agencies, and we take that information, we thoroughly look into it, and because we have that trial experience as prosecutors, we can learn to understand what information we need in order to charge a case, but also follow that up with what we need to be able to prove that case at trial. Because although Mr. Todd is correct that you can charge at the level of probable cause, when we have a trial, we are required to prove our cases beyond a reasonable doubt, which this will probably be the only time you ever hear me say this. It's the highest legal standard that there is. Defense attorneys love to use that against us all the time, but it's true. It's the highest legal standard that we have, and when we go to trial, it's not based on probable cause. It's based on beyond a reasonable doubt. So we make sure that in the back of our mind, can we prove this case at trial? And we sometimes have powwows with each other and we talk about it, and we can use our trial experience and say, hey, this worked really well the last time, this one didn't work very well. And when we have a situation where we're kind of like, we don't know if we have enough information, we ask the law enforcement to give it to us and we make an assessment then.
Next question. Again, this is Sarah. How would you address suicide, mental health, and substance abuse matters in the community and for your staff?
Yeah, for the community, I think that every single day our goal is to try to make Ottawa County safer. We need to make sure that it's safe for our victims, our witnesses, and for our defendants, and we work very hard to do that. I think it's important that part of that question talks about within our staff. The amount of stress and pressure reading these types of cases each and every single day is very hard on us. It's something that we carry with us. Our victim advocates, we have 5 of them, have such strife dealing with victims of crime and what they go through and dealing with all that emotions as we do when we handle our cases, that it is something that we've had many trainings on, and I hope to encourage it. I'll tell you, we're a very close staff. We have good sense of humor. There's nothing more that I enjoy than hearing laughter down the hall because I know what we're talking about, I know what we're dealing with, and knowing that we're able to have that communication and that co-worker powwow that allows us to have a little bit of sense of humor to make it through our day, I think is extremely important. So continued training and continuing being there for each other.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I would also add that, there are resources available through the county, especially like, for example, in the fire service, whenever there's an incident that occurs, there are debriefings that can be had if there are particularly traumatic situations. The door would always be open, and those services, that are available through the county, I'm sure could also be available to the prosecutor's office. If they're not currently available, that would be one of the earlier things that I would look into expanding so that those types of things could be included.
Greg, next question. Your position as prosecutor requires that the laws of the county, state, and country be enforced. What would you do if there was a law that you did not agree with personally, but nonetheless must enforce it?
My personal opinion doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm running as the constitutional candidate, and the Constitution of the state and of the United States are our founding documents, and everything would be run through the lens of the Constitution. For example, if it's a mandate, which isn't a law, then that's not something that the prosecutor's office should be getting involved in. But if it's a law that I just don't personally agree with, for example, abortion, I don't agree with abortion, yet it's part of our Constitution. It's Michigan residents' constitutional rights, and I'm not going to go out there and say, well, just because I don't agree with that I'm not going to enforce it, or I am going to enforce it. Ultimately, the decision comes down to the law is the law, and we need to be tougher on crime.
Yeah, a prosecutor's office isn't here to choose which law they choose to enforce. There's 3 branches of government, and we're the part that enforces the laws. So we're not out there subjectively deciding and picking and choosing which ones we choose and which day. We're here to enforce the laws, and that's what we're going to continue doing.
Next question. The discretion allotted to the prosecutor and its employees is significant when interacting with people who are in various situations for minor misdemeanors to felonies. What guidelines do you use to adhere to just and consistently render discretion, and how do you train the staff to do the same?
Yeah, it's an extremely complicated concept, plea bargaining. We many times choose to not make any plea bargains at all, and they don't go to jury trial. We end up having pleas as charged. Sometimes those go to bench trials, sometimes they go to jury trials. But what we need to assess is mainly 2 different things: the evidence that we have and the prior criminal history of a defendant. The other major consideration we have is victim involvement and victim desires and what they need to see happening. So when we're making these decisions, we need to make sure that we're understanding all of those different concepts before we make an agreement. We do not have specific policies of you fit into a certain line, therefore you're going to get a certain deal, except for when it comes to drunk drivings. We're extremely tough on drunk drivers. So we do have some guidelines on those because there's actually numbers that we can use to guide them. But other than that, we count on our good discretion and justice to make sure we're doing the right thing.
So I would agree that, there is no one-size-fits-all answer to the equation. But when it comes to discretion, I think a lot of times what we need to do is we need to take into account the individual facts and circumstances. And, for example, you could have a situation where you have somebody who was arrested for drunk driving, but the facts and the circumstances are that she ended up having 3 beers. She was, just at the level of .08, and yet you can't plea it down to the impaired because she at least can't accept that because she's a commercial truck driver, and even though she wasn't commercially truck driving, pleading to something like that would be the end of her career. And I believe that each individual prosecutor should be able to have the discretion to look at the facts and circumstances of each case and be able to make those kind of professional judgment calls.
Greg, in your management experience, you were certain to have situations that were not successful and even failures that enabled you to learn from those experiences. Please share one or more of those situations, how you learned from an unsuccessful endeavor.
So, back when I was in a management type of situation, I had a boss who ultimately didn't like one of the people that was there, and I had to, he basically called me into the office and told me as the assistant manager, I had to be the one to go and fire this person. And ultimately it was somebody I knew, it is somebody I'd known for a long time, and It was a very awkward situation, and it was one of those circumstances where I beat around the bush. I didn't want to say it. I felt terrible for having to do it. And ultimately, it was a failure on my part because, being squeamish about it, I ended up making the situation significantly worse and drawing it out for her. And, to this day, that's one of the things that, I definitely would have handled it differently.
So something that happened fairly recently. So I've been the chief assistant for almost 4 years and a senior attorney prior to then with the management experience. And there was one time when a prosecutor had a lot of experience, but she was newer to our office. We ran into a situation where she had to answer some really tough questions from a victim's family. And she asked if I could be there with her, and I said, no problem, I'll be there with you. We can have that conversation. And it was a tough conversation that we had. It involved the death of a child, and it was a really difficult position. What I didn't know is she had never been put in that position before. She had never been asked by her previous prosecutor to speak with a victim face-to-face like that. And so I learned that perhaps I should make sure that I ask if they've ever done that before I put them in that type of a situation. By the way, she handled it phenomenally. But it would just be good for me as a manager to say, hey, we're going to go do this. Have you ever done this before? So I think I learned my lesson.
Next question. What is your position on body cameras and dash cameras? And that's yours, Sarah.
We as prosecutors know that they're the best evidence, and they're always very helpful in our case, we found. Whether it comes to whether or not we authorize a case, we can see what actually happened. Or just prosecuting it and showing it to a jury. So we're very pro body and dash cams. I think they're going to be very helpful. They are right now with the departments that we have them with. But from our office's standpoint, it's very challenging when it comes to discovery, which is the disseminating of the evidence to defense counsel. So we get all that evidence, but we have to get it out there. And getting it from all different formats, from all different law enforcement agencies, has been very challenging for us. And it is hours and hours of dash cams from the front, dash cams from the back, body cameras. So it is taking up a significant amount of our time. We have a specific IT department that's helping us get through that, but that is our current challenge. So we embrace it, we like it, but it's been a challenge for us. But we're dealing with it, and we could use a little bit more funding. I know if that question's coming, that might help us in that department.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly that the cameras are the way of the future. Video evidence is definitely one of the best things that you can do to persuade both a judge and a jury.
And the next question is in fact about funding. So is the funding available for the prosecutor's office? If so, what additional funding might you recommend, and for what purpose?
So at this point, it does appear that the office is adequately funded. I believe the 2023 budget was somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.7 million. I think 80% of that was to personnel. Obviously that's a big chunk of change, and it seems like the office has historically been higher. It's also been lower. It's my understanding that there is some additional funds that are being requested currently to move the office from one floor to another. Additionally, if I were to take office and become the prosecutor, I would like to investigate the idea of having my own investigative division to go out and do the follow-up. I don't believe that when you have probable cause for something, I don't believe that you should have to be able to prove the whole case at the beginning. You should be able to get the victim the protection and the justice they need right away, and ultimately then you can start working on building up your case.
Yeah, we're very blessed in Ottawa County. I think all of our departments are run very well. I think that we're grateful for everything that we have. Like Eric said, we can always use more, and it would not get wasted. But right now where we really could use it is when it comes to technology. Like I said, we're getting these hours and hours worth of data that's coming, and our IT specialists just simply don't have the computer equipment to be able to handle it as fast as they can. So as the impending Ottawa County Sheriff's Department body cams and dash cams are coming to us, we could really use a little bit of upgrades in our technology.
And I'm checking, Paula, are there any additional questions from the audience? In that case, we will be moving to the closing statements. And since we began with Sarah, we'll end with you. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thanks for everyone for coming tonight. You know, my name's Greg Todd, and it's like John said earlier. I think the big thing is that it's important that you do your research, you go out there, you find out which candidate aligns more with your values, and you make sure that you show up on August 6th. That's the day to vote. Anybody who's showing up in November and hoping to pick a prosecutor, it's going to be all said and done by then. So thanks for your time, and if you have any questions, obviously we do have a social media presence, and you can find me at gregtodd.com.
So I think what you guys have learned today is, and I'll repeat the word again, my passion for this job. This dedication to the community and our victims of crime and to our 38 staff in our office is what I desire to be committed to for many, many more years. I love this job, I love the people I work with, and I love our community. People ask one question during almost every single interview, and that's, what experience do you have that makes you qualified for this position? There is not one reason that you shouldn't be asking that question of all of your candidates when you go to vote on August 6th. I think when you ask that question, hopefully that decision has been made for you. And I'm asking that you consider me as that vote on August 6th.
Again, thank you to all of the candidates.
Thank you.
And closing remarks, Paula, past, present.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone coming tonight on this beautiful, beautiful summer night in West Michigan. Please give our candidates another round of applause. It wasn't easy being a We hope you have insight as to their positions based on their responses and their statements. You can learn more about these and other candidates by visiting vote411.org. Candidates have responded to additional questions about their candidacy at this site, Vote411. A reminder that a video of this forum will be available on our website and YouTube channel in a few days. Copyright ownership of the recordings rests with the League of Women Voters. Candidates and their supporters cannot use the video recording of the forum, portions of the recording, or any audio clips, video clips for political advertising or other purposes without the written permission of the League of Women Voters. And most of all, remember to vote on August 6th. That's the date, folks. The polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. There are 2 other options for voting, too. All voters have the option to vote by absentee ballots. These ballots are now available and can be returned by mail, postage included now, or returned to a drop box for your voting area. Additionally, you may now vote in person during the early voting period, July 27 through August 4. More information about requesting an absentee ballot or confirming your voter registration, locating your drop box, or location of hours of early voting can be found on Vote411 at your local clerk's office or michigan.gov/vote. Our website also has information about voting in elections, and thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. I believe the candidates said if somebody came up here and asked them a specific question that we didn't address tonight, that they try and answer your questions. So.
Thank you.